Good evening and welcome to the scheduled meeting of the Milford School Committee. Today is Thursday, December 5th, 2024, and this meeting is being broadcast and recorded by Milford TV. Copies can be obtained at the request of this board or through central office. We start tonight with an update from our student representative. Hello.
Hi guys, I'm back again. Kind of a shorter update, but I was gonna come on the 19th, but we have a pasta dinner for swim at my house that day, so kind of gotta be there. So winter sports, full swing. First week of practice was this week, and the first sport that's having like a meet is actually swim. We're having our relay carnival Saturday morning, bright and early, 9 a.m. And 8 teams from like the Hawk League, we're gonna compete in a meet of only relays. So it doesn't really count for like a championship or like a sectional time, but just kind of for fun to get our new swimmers acclimated to the way of swimming. And a number of our students have been honored with the AP Scholar Award. So an AP Scholar is a student who has an average score of at least 3.5 on all AP exams taken and has gotten 3 or higher on 5 or more of the AP exams that they've taken in their high school career. So these students are going to have an honorary breakfast on December 13th to celebrate their accomplishments and get an award for all the hard work that they put in. And senior breakfast, that will be the day before winter break. Just kind of a nice way for the senior class to bond and come back before the new year. And senior formal is next Friday at the Doubletree in Milford from 7 to 10 p.m. And parent-teacher night is on December 12th. That's about all I have.
Excellent. Comments or questions? Yeah. All right. That's easy. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the new year.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Announcements, correspondence, and distribution. Does anyone have anything for that?
I've got a quick one. We had our first snow impact this morning. First time in December, and I think more than 5 or 6 years that we've had something. I want to thank Scott Crisafulli and our DPW crew who always do an outstanding job of clearing the roads and the sidewalks for us, as well as Carlos Pena and his team for their work in the parking lots and the walkways at our schools. We continue to use a number of media, from phone calls to text messages to social media to the traditional media, to announce snow days, whether they're delays or cancellations. I had an interesting morning this morning because I learned that my wife had actually gotten rid of our landlines. I usually wait for my call, and I was like, oh, geez, the call didn't go through. I'm looking around for a phone, and there was no phone in the house. So, lesson learned. Maybe I should pay closer attention to what's happening. That's all I have.
All right. All right. Excellent. I see nobody here for invitation to speak. We'll pass over that. The chairperson update will also pass over. I don't have anything for you there. So that brings us to the Shining Star Early Childhood Center tuition increase proposal.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
We're happy to be back. I believe Melissa shared with you the information you had requested in regards to the allocation of the funds from the tuition monies.
We do have that, yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm here to request an increase in the tuition at Shining Star. The ask is coming from the increasing overall operating costs of the preschool, so there is a need to increase the tuition down at the preschool. And I just want to point out that even with the increase, if it's approved and voted on tonight, Shining Star would still be the best option for families within the surrounding area. We are significantly cheaper than surrounding preschools, in addition to surrounding integrated public preschools. So within that packet that was shared with you, I am requesting a 3% increase over the next 3 years, and you can see the breakdown per session. It's a small increase each year over the next 3 years.
All right. Any questions or comments? Robin, you're doing the same thing I was doing earlier today. The underneath on the agenda, the next
there's
link
another-
will help you out.
another one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I was like, oh, I was trying to rotate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if
the
you-
proposal
if you-
document has the table sideways, but the
Okay.
next document
If you
has it
want.
right, so it's fine.
Gotcha.
The link underneath.
I totally did that this morning.
You can just take the computer and flip it over.
Yes.
Any comments or questions on that? From what I do see, this does look like it covers everything we were looking for. I do, while you guys are looking at it, I'll just give my thought. I do think that this is a very, very modest increase and seems very acceptable in my opinion. Robin?
I just wanted to clarify, so the increase we're looking at, the way the amounts are listed, this would be the annual amount that a family would be paying
Correct.
based on what they pick, right? Yes.
Correct.
Corey, could you speak to communication of sort of what your thoughts are in terms of how we'd communicate these changes, just given we haven't increased in so long, to let families know for planning for next year?
Perfect. So registration is actually going to be coming up
Yep.
in February. So all of our packets obviously have not been disseminated out to the public, so it will be included in that new packet. So
Great.
when families come to pick up the packets, all of the information is there.
Excellent. And I couldn't agree more. It is a very modest increase and still the best deal you'll find, so not questioning it in any way in that regard. Do we also post the rates on the website?
We do not post the
Okay.
rates on the website.
Great, thanks.
Anything else? No? All right.
Make a motion to approve the rate increase as presented?
Motion by Megan to approve the rate increase as presented. Is there a second? Second by Brendan. All in favor? It's unanimous.
But, you know, we could post them on the website with our registration packet is on there, so I don't see
Yeah.
why that wouldn't be on there.
It
So
might
I-
even encourage families, Corey, honestly, to register because it is so reasonable. So
Yeah.
just food for thought if once we want to communicate it. Just thinking.
We would have to go on a wait list because we have one spot left in the
Fair.
preschool. We're,
Okay,
we're very
totally
sought
fair.
after down at the
I don't doubt
preschool,
that.
so,
I've been there, yeah.
Yeah,
Excellent, thank you.
you're welcome.
Very good.
Much quicker than
On
the
to
last
Much
the-
quicker, yes. I'll take it.
Thanks. We'll move on now to the Special Education Department update.
Hi,
Hello.
everyone.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, does everybody have the slides?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody's been so quick, so I'll follow suit. So the special education update for this year is very similar to the updates that were provided in past years. I've included student population numbers, number of active IEPs, percentage and numbers of our students that are placed in out-of-district programs, the number of move-ins, and all of our programming throughout the district. So we're looking at, right now, student population. Our overall population is 4,569. Of that, 55 of them are out-of-district students. Active IEPs are, including out-of-district, are 845. I think the significant numbers for us are the number of students with IEPs who moved in since the summer. So last year at this time, we had 29 students that moved in since June. So June through November, we had 29 students. This year, we're up to 59 already. So that's a 103% increase. I think when you look at the overall numbers, our overall numbers really hasn't moved since last year. They stayed about the same, but the intensity of services has definitely increased. So the students with disabilities is 18.4% of our student population. Like I said, out of district, 55. Students waiting for placements that are in active referrals are 6. We have a potential list for students that may in the future need out-of-district programming, that's 12. But our overall population, overall percentage is 1.2, and rule of thumb is to be under 2%, so we've always remained well under that. So, and I think that's due to our phenomenal programming. So I broke it down, the numbers by grade. You can see like all of the students in each grade. Something that we need to be looking at are grade 3 has a, grade 3 and 5 are higher than our other grades. So as they move up, we're gonna have to do some shifting in our programming. I do wanna say that we have 845 students. That does not include our active referrals. So right now we have close to 120 students that are in the referral process, which is pretty high for this time of year. So current programming, I know you've heard from most of the principals. Shining Star Preschool has 3 Milestones programs. That's substantially separate programs for our students with ASD. We have a medically complex, substantially separate program for students with multiple medically complex disabilities. And then we have 7 inclusion classrooms. Specialized services are like they are district-wide: speech language therapy, social skills interventions, physical, gross motor and occupational therapy, and BCBA support. Brookside has 3 Milestones program and an early therapeutic class. Brookside and Memorial have special education co-taught classrooms and pull-aside services for students requiring more intensive special education interventions. Later on, I'm going to just talk about the Milestones programs at Brookside and ETC program at Memorial. So Woodland Elementary also has a Milestones program, an ETC program. They have language-based classrooms, co-taught classrooms, pull-out services, and number of special educators is around 15. Stacy Middle School, total special educators is 17. We currently have 1 Milestones program, 2 LBC programs, and then I separated out the special educators grades 6, 7, and 8. I did include the Bridges program on Stacy Middle School and Milford High School. They're not necessarily special education programs, but they definitely provide supports for our students who are struggling with emotional disabilities. And then Milford High School, we have our pre-voc program, our vocational program, we have our Bridges classroom, grades 9 through 12, we have 9 special educators, and then this year we have some students at Project Search, which is a vocational program. Our site that we partner with is Milford Regional Medical Center, and we're really happy to be back there because we haven't been in the past 2 years. Okay, special education staff. So district-wide, we have 18 chairpersons, 6 school psychologists, 9 speech and language pathologists, and then OT, PT, vision specialist, teacher of the deaf, 3 BCBAs, and an orientation and mobility specialist. In talking with other special ed directors in the district, I think we're pretty well staffed, which is something that we're really proud of. So Milestones, substantially separate programming. So I know last year I talked to you about the number of students. So in the past couple of years, we've increased, because we have an increase in the number of students requiring substantially separate programming, we've had to increase the number of classrooms and obviously get a teacher for that classroom. So Shining Star currently has 22 students that are in the substantially separate program, but we also have students that are tied to the program. So next year we project that we will not need another classroom. Brookside, we have 3 classrooms, and because of the number of kindergarten students that are moving up to Brookside, we're going to need a 4th Milestones classroom, which is, they're going to have a lot of students. Woodland also, because of the number of second graders, they're going to 3rd, they're also going to need an additional classroom. So right now they have 1 classroom with 9 students, but we're going to need 2 classrooms there. And then Stacy Middle School, the number of students in that Milestones program has typically been around 5 or 6. Right at the moment we have 11 students there because we've had a couple of move-ins. We've also moved the 5th grade students from Woodland to Stacy Middle School so that we didn't have to open up another program, because we hadn't planned for it, because we weren't planning on the number of students that have moved into district. And then the programming at Pre-Voc and Voc will stay the same. And then for Project Search, we're looking at, we have currently 5 students that are participating, but the Milford Regional Center is unable to take more than 5 students. We're looking at 7 or 8 students that potentially could access Project Search. So our transition vocational coordinator, Lorraine Blanchard, will be working with the special ed department and Project Search to find another site. So she'll be seeing if we can get another site. If that's the case, we would need another special education teacher to be at that site. And I think you've all seen this circuit breaker reimbursement. We're looking at what we've had in the past. I broke it down. So for FY 2025 was almost 2.5 million. That includes transportation. If you look at transportation since 2022, you can see that 22 and 23 was 75% reimbursement. 24 was 57%, 25 was 44%. We don't know yet what the percentage is going to be. We're hoping that it doesn't go much lower than 44%. And then current vacancies right now, similar to last year, we have over 20 vacancies for our paraprofessionals. And then finally, highlights. Our special education teams are currently implementing the new Mass IEP, which calls for more student input. We've trained well over 120 educators in the district. Project Search, again, we're really happy to be partnering again with Milford Hospital, and we're hoping to provide the services for our students that are between 18 and 22 years old. We continue to train our teachers here so that we can have more co-teaching opportunities, and we're very grateful for the Bridges program because I think it provides services that some of our students need that they haven't been able to access in the past. Some concerns that we have, our team meetings are taking a little bit longer than they usually do because we're getting more used to the new IEP. We're getting comfortable with it, and it just it requires a lot of detailed information from all parties. There's an increase in the number of students requiring intensive supports, which equals a need for additional resources. And we are having a little bit of difficulty providing services for students that are in active referral for out of district. So if we recommend that a student requires services that we can't provide, and if it has to do with safety, if we're unable to keep a child safe, we'll recommend placement. But in the referral process, if they're not able to stay at school, we would provide tutoring or some other way to educate the student. We're having a tough time finding tutors or finding something that's going to meet the educational needs of the student while they're waiting, because there's such a long waiting list for our out-of-district placements. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Anybody?
I have a few questions, so if somebody else is just like one and they want to go first, that's okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for all that information. First one is so about the new IEP. I don't know how active the CPAC still is, but is there going to be any type of like training for parents about it?
We did do some training last year. I don't know if I would call it training. We went over the new IEP.
Okay.
Our CPAC is active. We have our officers that attend every month. It's not really well attended. We've advertised, but we have put it out there that if anybody does want some extra training on it, we'd be happy to provide it.
Yeah, I think that would just be a nice district-wide, so from a parent role, I haven't necessarily seen that. So I'm sure, I'm not doubting that it's out there, it's just maybe not as advertised as it perhaps could be, like just understanding the new IEP, and I know just talking to other parents, there's confusion about it, so just...
You just jogged my memory. So at our last meeting in November, Melanie Galante, who's a team chair at Shining Star, she did present the new IEP.
Okay.
I think there were 4 people in attendance, and then Kristen Payton and Loren Blanchard presented on the transition planning piece of the new IEP.
Yeah, I just think it's so hard because getting the word out, but I think that's part of it. It's just making sure, like, is there some way that could be even tied into like the weekly newsletters that go out at schools, so that, because I just don't know that information was necessarily seen by all of the parents. Not that it wasn't made available, I just don't know that it was as publicized. So, and I don't know if your team would be willing to do something else about the new IEP. Just, I know talking to parents, anecdotally, I've heard people just kind of confused about it. So I think that would be beneficial. So that was just one thought about that. And then I just want to understand, so I know that you talked about the bridge programs, and at the high school, are there there 2 bridge programs in the high
No,
school?
there are 2 special education teachers.
Gotcha, okay.
So they're half-time in Bridges and then half-time in Inclusion Classroom.
And I was wondering if because I just had a couple questions. So the early therapeutic programs, as opposed to the Bridges program. Could you talk about how those are different?
So early therapeutic program are for our students that have behavioral or emotional needs or disabilities. If the ones at, I would say from K to 5 are more behavioral, so we would want the support of a BCBA, school psychologist, adjustment counselors. When you get up to Stacy Middle School, we used to have an ETC room. We don't, because we felt that we couldn't provide the therapeutic supports. It requires a full-time either school psychologist or adjustment counselor, which we, which was problematic getting because the caseloads are pretty high. So Bridges came, so I believe Bill Chaplin was the one and Josh getting Bridges back here. So it's not a special education initiative. It's for students who may have been hospitalized and need a transition program so that they can slowly get back into school. For students who may have a disability or just having a hard time being in the school setting. So I think we're seeing such success here because we have a full-time school psychologist that is dedicated just to that program. So it does have a huge therapeutic component.
And I know this is a bigger philosophical question in a way, but what I'm hearing is that at the elementary school level, and please correct me if I'm wrong, ETC is a placement for children through special education. At the middle and high school, it is not necessarily a special education placement, but it has the supports for students.
Yes, so it's not a special ed placement because it's for any student, so you don't have to have a disability. You can have students who have been hospitalized for a mental health issue that maybe we weren't aware of, but they were hospitalized, and then they come back into this program. But it's not just for mental health issues. So they may or may not end up in the referral process. So our ETC at the earlier levels we tried to have them mimic some of our out-of-district placements, whereas this is, I don't know that it necessarily does that.
Well, the reason I'm asking all of these questions, so I'm looking at those out-of-district numbers, and I'm noticing a trend that when we get from preschool, we're at 0, and then we get to early elementary, we're at 2. And I know that these are still low numbers, but every single one of these children has a high cost associated with their learning. So then we get to middle school, and now our 2 is turned to 5. So we've effectively doubled, up to the point where we have 10 kids in grade 10 who are in out-of-district placements.
So I think I know where you're going, but I'm sorry to interrupt. The 10 that are in grade 10, I would say 2 of the 10 have been newly placed, so they've been out of district for a few years.
Okay.
So it's not that we don't have the programming for students in the high school level. And actually, when students are going out of district, if they need more intensive supports, we have an easier time placing the students from middle school on. It's really difficult to place younger students.
So I guess I'm looking at it twofold. One is, it sounds, if you think the Bridge program, and it's only been in existence for a couple of years, this is something that was just approved through the school committee 2 years ago to get the funding for that. So I realized this needs more time. What I'm actually thinking is, on the lower end, should we be thinking in budget season about adding more mental health support to the ETCs to make it more inclusive for kids in general education, using almost more of a Bridge format at Woodland to be able to prevent kids from needing to go out of district once they get to Stacy? I don't know what the answer to that is, but I'm just wondering, I know you're saying we have a full-time either counselor or school psychologist assigned to Bridges at the middle and high school level. At the elementary school level, I know you mentioned BCBA support, but they don't have a BCBA assigned to the room, correct?
At the
Like at Woodland.
They have a BCBA in the building.
Right.
So, and we've gone back and forth on this, so I think you can look at it in one of two ways. I do think that we need more of a mental health support person at the higher level. So for a Bridges program or even a therapeutic classroom, you would want the support of an adjustment counselor or a licensed mental health counselor, social worker, school psychologist. At the younger grades, because the behaviors that we're seeing are indicative of maybe an emotional disability, we thought maybe a BCBA and a school psychologist together would be, I think, more effective at that grade. I've gone back and forth on that.
And regardless of who I guess my question is, does that room need somebody assigned to them? Because right now it's building-based staff, so that's kind of where I'm
No, it
looking.
doesn't.
Okay.
But you'll see in my budget proposal, a BCBA for the ETC classroom we're hoping to move it to Memorial because we need 4 classrooms for Milestones at Brookside. So I have put in the budget a BCBA.
Okay. That would support that program specifically.
Yes, and the ETC program will not be successful without the proper support person or a support person. So whether it's a BCBA, a school psychologist, an adjustment counselor, we have to have that support.
And I'm not disagreeing with you. That's why I want to see with budget season coming up, what type of support is going to be needed to make those programs as effective. And then my last question was just the reimbursement for transportation. Do you have a sense of why it's so much lower than it was, or?
It's what the state is funding.
Okay, that's just all it is.
The
I think it was
percentage is
originally
lower.
supposed to be 100%.
Then
but
it was
now it's-
80, and I think it's like 40 or 50 they're actually giving us funds for. So that's
Yeah.
really the reason. It's the funding from the state.
Okay.
But, and I don't know how this works, but for the tuition increases, this year, FY25, I think, is under 4%. FY24 was around 4.69, and the year before was like 14%. So maybe, I'm thinking, we'll get a little more money from
It's
the...
hard to say, but it's been an unfunded mandate for a very long time.
And when do what time?
Or underfunded, I should say, not unfunded.
Do we get that throughout the year, or is it like at one point in the year they say this is when you're getting back your circuit breaker? Is that?
Oh, that's a question. not
Okay,
for me.
sorry.
Do you have an answer to that, Mike?
Usually later, after everybody's budget is.
So we can't really plan on it.
Naturally.
It's listed on the website. If you go on Circuit Breaker, it'll say when they give
Okay,
you the payments. And we also have like the relief fund, which we got this past year, so that's given at a certain time, so I don't want to give you any incorrect
Yeah, I was just
information.
curious how well we can predict what we're going to be getting.
I think based on, we've already started, not we, Leslie and our support staff have already started working on it, so I think we should see a similar number,
Okay.
about 2.5 million for next year. If we stay at 44% for transportation, hopefully we won't go much lower than that, but I think we'll get back still the same.
And there's advocacy across the state, because everybody's,
Of course.
a couple of years ago, I think they banded about they cover 80% of it, even 100% like Lucy said. and It's just going to tick back for a variety of reasons.
You're welcome.
I just have one question. You said there's 20 plus vacancies, but we don't list any on our website. Is that a reason, or we just don't have the budget for it? Is that what it is?
Oh, we have the budget for it.
Okay.
We've been posting positions, so each of the buildings have been posting. They've been up for a while. I don't know if they're on
They're
School
not
Spring.
on our website. They're not on School Spring.
Okay.
They might be closed now, too. They could
Okay.
be in the interview process.
Got it.
But that's always a moving target. There's always a certain number of vacancies across the district
Sure.
because people are coming and going.
And if we post it for a long time and then somebody leaves and we post again, if we keep posting, we feel that we have to give it a rest, and then maybe we'll get a new group of candidates. So,
Okay.
but you'll see them soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, on that vacancy topic, thank you for being here. Besides School Spring and our website, what other kind of reach outs are we doing throughout the community?
We are asking anybody if they're interested in having in working for Milford Public School. I think all of us have a pretty strong network. We've gone to career fairs. I think a lot of it is referrals and word of mouth.
We've done
actually
local career fairs in the past, and actually we've been pretty well staffed for the first, I'd say, half the year. I think we're seeing an uptick in resignations lately, so we'll probably do something after the first of the year.
Yeah. I guess, to the point, right? It's not on School Spring, it's not on the website, but there's 20 positions, so it's a little concerning from this seat that we have that many positions needed, and just, how can we be creative with reaching out within the community? Because obviously, only a specific person's going to go to our website, right, to look, or go on School Spring. So how do you advertise? What other avenues are out there, So, because I haven't seen anything per se on our social media, so I think that might be one way of putting it out there too. So, just suggest that. Shifting gears back to kind of transportation, obviously transportation costs are going up, our reimbursement's going down. Kind of just generically, what can special education do, if anything, to help control costs of transportation?
I don't know.
Okay.
So if you're looking at in-district, so most of our students that require substantially separate programming also require specialized transportation. So if you're going to see an increase in the number of students requiring intensive programming in 2 more classrooms for next year, you're going to see an increase in the number of students that are going to require transportation. So that's in-district. I know when you talk to our transportation director, he's up to like 105 students on specialized transportation, which is pretty high. So we've gone through the list. We've tried to see if there were students that maybe would benefit from not being on specialized transportation. And if you have that many students that require intensive services, they need the specialized transportation. As far as out of district, again, I mean, if our number of students that are being referred, I do think that number, so we've always hovered around 60 students. We're at 55 right now, so we're going to have a couple of students that are aging out. So I don't know that it's going to increase dramatically unless the prices go up. So we have no control over that.
So I kind of figured that was the answer.
And also, I mean, I shouldn't say that every single student in a substantially separate program requires it, but that's part of the team decision, but I would say the majority of them do.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is like the one trend we're seeing, both locally, across the state and nationally, is the intensity of student need is just increasing. Like our percentages aren't really going up dramatically, but what is going up dramatically is the needs of the students within that, like 18.6% of students that are on IEPs. That's why, Lucy's saying, like, we're waiting to see all the other district placements. I sit on the Bi-County Collaborative Board, and, that's what I'm hearing across the board. That's, across collaboratives, across private placements. Particularly at the elementary level, there's just not enough seats to fill because of just the intensity of needs going up, and we're experiencing that on a daily basis.
Just one more question related to what Chris just asked me to think of it. I'm just wondering, I 100% understand it's a team decision about the specialized transportation. Are we tracking reasons for specialized transportation? The reason I'm asking is I'm thinking, hypothetically, if there's some students who need it because they need access to a nurse on the bus, would it be cheaper and possible to hire another nurse and put them on regular transportation?
It's next to impossible to find a nurse to ride on
Okay.
a bus. There's nursing shortages everywhere. We're lucky that we have all our positions filled right now, but they're very difficult to find because, number one, nursing positions are higher paid positions, and we're not paying the equivalent of what somebody makes at like a Mass General or even a hospital to ride on a van with a student.
To that point, but have we tried?
Have we tried what?
To at least get some, and more for them flexibility hours of trying to get, nurses have more flexibility in their schedules. Their schedules fluctuate from week to week. So I was curious, do we look for a group of nurses that way they could kind of work schedules together?
We have, and I
Just out of
know our
curiosity.
director of nursing has been looking as well. So we have nurses that are required to ride with our out-of-district students. And so if you have that, you can look at a 2-hour block in the morning and a 2-hour block in the afternoon. So it's really difficult to find someone to have the afternoon free.
Right.
If you could get someone just in the morning run, just for the afternoon run, and we've advertised, we've called every agency. We've asked about having a paramedic or an EMT, RN, BSN. We've tried it, and we've had a really difficult time. So, Rebecca's done a great job kind of moving people around and sharing the responsibility, but it's becoming difficult.
Okay. I have one more. I have one more question,
You're good.
unless yours is
No,
on
go
transportation
ahead.
stuff. Just quickly, I know you're not going to have the answer, but maybe you can send it. Can you break down on the out-of-district to us just for, we can see residential versus daily transportation?
So 6 of our students are currently residential.
All right, you do have, all right, thank you.
Maybe to just finish off on Robin's question, Lucy, do we track the reason for the transporting?
Yes.
I'm not asking to see it, I'm just curious if that's
Yes,
information
so,
that's available.
well, I shouldn't say yes so adamantly. We try to.
Okay.
I think we could definitely do better on that. Once we talk about specialized transportation for a student that, say, is at pre-K or K for, because they attend a sub-separate program, I think we assume that that's always going to be the case, so it's something that just stays there.
Got it, okay.
For our students who required it at a younger age but may not necessarily need it now,
Yeah.
I think we can look at those numbers like Woodland, Stacy, and the high school. It gets difficult because if it's a safety reason or a
Sure.
navigating reason, trouble navigating, it's hard.
Yeah.
And for some students, if they don't have access to our bus because of where they live, and you're asking them to walk after being on specialized transportation,
Got it.
we would rather just have them in there.
Understood. It just with the numbers, there may be a point at which creative solutions could be available that we just would want to give some consideration to, that's all. So just to continue to think about that. And I'm sure that we're trying, I don't mean to imply that, but just the dollars are quite significant. And so at
Yes.
some point, some real brainstorming around, is there more options? The question I was going to ask also, Lucy, is in regards to just so thank you for giving us this update at this point in time, because we're about to head into budget season. So it's super helpful to have all this very fresh. What do you think about the numbers of special ed support at Stacy versus the high school? Because when I look at the number of students, they seem fairly comparable. Do you feel like we're well staffed?
At Stacy or at high school?
There was no ask for either, so I was just wanted to confirm with you that you feel like we're currently covered in both of those.
So, in our budget proposal, the 2 things that, now I have to remember what 3 things that I'm asking for. One of them is a BCBA, and that BCBA would be just for Memorial School.
Yep.
With some consulting to Stacy Middle School. I also am asking for a speech language pathologist, so I did ask for one last year. We asked for an SLPA part-time. We were unsuccessful. We've tried to contract out to other agencies, and it's a flop.
Okay.
So we really need a bilingual speech language pathologist, especially at Stacy Middle School.
Okay.
All of our buildings have 2, except for Memorial, and that caseload is going up. So Stacy in the high school doesn't require 2, but we really need another one at Stacy.
Okay.
Especially because of the number of students requiring milestones.
Sorry, and that's, I think, maybe what I was misunderstanding. That's really what you're highlighting here. There's some additional potential asks that aren't necessarily called out here, which is totally fine. Got
yes.
it. Okay, so that's
and then a project search teacher.
Excellent.
So those are the 3 budget requests.
Okay. Could you just speak briefly to how that programming works? Are those students out of the building most of the days, some of the days?
All day.
All day.
So, we have pre-voc here, and then we have our vocational program, phenomenal programs. And then for some of our students that didn't participate in either one, but are students that were, that had, significant needs that may not be ready to go out into the workforce or may not choose to go to college, but require programming. This is for students who, it's either in their last year of high school or after they've left the high school. So they don't receive a diploma. They'll go 1 year at Project Search. So it's a 1 year.
Awesome.
And so I think of the students that are there, I don't want to get this wrong, but out of the 5, I think 3 of them were students that were not in the vocational program.
Okay. Great.
And it's a phenomenal program.
Yeah, it sounds
and it
like it.
prevents us from having to send those students to a
Sure.
program because it's really difficult to place students at that age.
Excellent. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy.
Have a great night.
Thanks, Lucy. All right, that'll bring us to the next item listed, which is a policy that we are going to pass over tonight. There's some more information that has to be worked on with that one. We'll skip ahead to the report of the superintendent of schools.
So I have 2 really quick updates for the committee this evening. The first one is the MSBA update. The final piece that we need to submit is the maintenance and capital planning information. The main requirements of that are the Milford Public Schools Facilities Maintenance Plan and Preventative Maintenance Program. There's some online sections of question and answer and a facilities condition index. I will have a final draft for review on Tuesday for the subcommittee, as well as the school building committee. I'll also provide copies to the full committee. They're predominantly done. I just want to take one more run through them before I send them out for kind of vetting. And again, we're very close to having this section fully completed. And there's also things like job descriptions and like kind of pro forma stuff that I'm not going to really share with you because they're just things we're pulling from historical information. The final two pieces are the enrollment meeting and feasibility study agreement, and these are scheduled by the MSBA directly. And I've spoken to our contact. They'll be reaching out to us for the enrollment meeting sometime probably right after the holidays. I would assume it'll probably happen later in the month. I think they're a little behind in their kind of meeting schedule, was my sense. And there's a lot of districts in the pipeline right now. So happy to answer any questions.
Yeah.
Chris?
Just quick, Kevin, so you're going to present to us on Tuesday for the building committee, and then the school building committee, the full committee. When do you expect to present to them?
I think I'm going to give them the drafts on Wednesday.
Okay.
Because it's really just feedback, and then I'm going to
Okay.
take all that feedback and put it together in the final version.
Okay. And then this committee, when will?
I'll probably send it to you guys Tuesday too. the full
Okay.
committee.
All right. So we
Yeah.
can look at it.
So you can just take a peek at it and give me feedback. If,
Yeah,
you know,
feedback. Okay. Yeah, I just wasn't sure if it needed to be done by the full committee to what we've done in the past, right? We reviewed documents as a full committee, approved them, and then moved those documents on to the school building committee.
I'm happy to back
So-
that up a little bit because we do have the time to do it.
Yeah, that's why. I just wanted to think that through, but I also don't want to hold up the process by any.
Yeah,
I know
mean,
we have
I think this one is less, I think it's going to be just feedback for people
Yeah.
saying, what do you think about this? What do you think
Yeah.
about that? More than,
Yeah. And because there's a school building committee meeting January 8th, but I believe our meeting in January is on the 9th, if I recall, so looking at it. So that's why I want to make sure that we could, if we were to present it here, just for review and any type of feedback, if we wanted to do that openly, it would have to be at the December 19th meeting.
We
That's
could do
why.
that.
So
That's fine.
As long as, yeah.
That's what people would like
we
to do.
have drafts and all
I'm
that.
happy, we've got the time, so
Yeah.
I'm happy to do
Okay.
whatever.
Sounds good.
whatever you
So
guys
that
wanna
works
do.
into the schedule then. All right, great.
Email me that so I don't forget.
Will do.
Thank you. Anything else on that topic? No? All right.
All right, second update is the student enrollment, and again, this is very brief. I just want to keep you guys up to date on where we are enrollment-wise. So we opened September with 4,603 students enrolled across the district, and as of December 1st, we're at 4,569. This is not unusual. We tend to have a number of students still on the rolls at the start of the year that are no longer in the district. So again, a slight drop from the beginning of the school year. Typically, we see a bump from January to April of increased student enrollment. It's going to be interesting to see how national and state policy impacts our enrollment trends, not just this year, but over the next 3 to 5 years. I think anything I say would be pure speculation, so I'm not going to predict where I think it's going to go because I don't know. But this is kind of where we're at. We're relatively stable this year. I think it's a difference of 34 students right now. And again, it's we have students constantly coming in and out, so we're at a net 34 loss. So think of it that way, because like every day we add a few students, we lose a couple students, but over the first 3 months, we've net lost 34 basically. And those students, and I would say that original number is usually a little inflated because we lose students over the summer every single year.
Anything on FRC?
In terms of,
Do they have like a log of?
yeah, the numbers right now we're kind of on the lower end of the last 6 or 7 years. I think there's probably about 20 to 30 students in the pipeline right now, which is a little lower than it typically is. It's usually around 40 or 50.
Cool.
So it's trending down a little bit, which is
Yeah.
actually a good thing because our space is staying
That's not trending up.
pretty static.
Yeah, the trivial question, are we seeing any clusters at certain grade levels, or is it throughout? As far as the drop-off or income
it's
in?
kind of throughout. Like there hasn't been a grade level, like with the bigger grade levels are still the bigger grade levels, and the smaller ones are still the smaller ones. So I don't think we've seen like a huge variation there so much. I think it's just overall, it's a couple students here, a couple students
Okay.
there. was it, third grade's our biggest one? Yeah, so third grade is our biggest one coming in.
Mhm.
It's still our biggest, grade by number right now.
Okay.
And, there's a couple that are really close that have probably fluctuated a little bit, but there's no hey, like a couple of years ago, we saw a huge jump in the high school. I think probably, before the pandemic, maybe we saw a huge bump in the high school. So we haven't seen anything like that. Where we've where we have to come and say, hey, we have to add sections, or we have to do this. Like, nothing like that is happening this year.
Okay.
Anything else? All right. Thank you for your updates. Thank you.
You got it?
Next up is the report of the school business administrator.
Thank you. I provided the budget update and the revolving account balance as required by Megan last time. The areas concerns are still tuitions and transportation.
That's shocking.
Yeah.
I know. But we'll just have to keep watching and spending.
And again, on that, I think we just saw a slide with transportation from Lucy that was kind of showing the increase in out-of-district, the drop in reimbursement
Yeah.
is piling up. I think that was a piece that I don't want to say missing, but that was a piece that would have been complementary to what we saw from the transportation director a while ago. That's starting to paint the picture of where that money's going. So, and this did happen last year, I believe, too, where the numbers started going up and up. We're at like $733,000, but then once that circuit breaker comes back in, that number actually falls down a little bit, right?
Right. So right now I put the circuit breaker in the bottom.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
none of those money has been put back yet.
Yeah.
But when you look at transportation, even with that money, it's already over budget.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And you heard from Lucy that we have 29 students moved in, and like over 100 are under referrals. So we don't know what's going to happen in the rest of the year. So just have to keep updating everybody. And the revolving account, do you have any questions? Pretty straightforward.
Could you just clarify when the non-resident tuition? Is that, because then I see school choice below that. Just wasn't sure. Or you can get back to me, no worries.
That's when students from other districts participate in our in-district programs, and they pay the tuition to our town.
So like our version of what we consider out of district.
Correct.
Like, so different than school choice because they're sort of being placed here. Is that how to
Yes.
think about it? Thank you.
Yep.
That's super helpful.
Any other questions on that?
Just kind of a comment. So the community use revolving that we talked about last meeting, that's at 163 now.
Yeah.
I think last meeting you thought it was at 260 something. And I know
Maybe it's a
we put you
cycle
on the
of-
spot. That was off the top of your head, but
It's they have a period that they start the registrations and the revenue coming, and then there's some time that they're just big spending. I think.
yeah,
it's
no,
just
that was
time
you.
and-
It was totally off the cuff when we put you on the spot last week. But just to clarify, it's 160.
Yes, as of today.
All right. Thank you for that.
And the personnel updates are attached as well for your information. And the next item is the facility expense audit update. Does everyone recall the findings?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, good. So I include them as a refresh of memories. I can go over each findings and just give an update. The first finding, I have spoken to Mr. Taylor, and just to know if they are aware of all those findings, and they are, but they'd like to schedule a meeting to further discuss.
On that first finding, I do want to point out, I believe that we were informed from Kathy that that information was sent to those two places already, right?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
That's-
Yes.
that's
So in terms
I
of the
confirm.
actions, you were talking about meeting with town hall to discuss this on the town hall side as well.
We're just gonna go over the whole audit
Okay.
process and the findings and maybe see the future actions.
Okay.
So the finding two are some of the recommendations from the auditor. And if you click in the link of the procedure, this is an example of the internal procedure we're going to create for like every task in the business office. Can you open it, or do you have access? Okay, so basically, I just put the finding numbers in there so you can align them with the findings. And on the top, I created a new form verification of work. So when the work is done, the vendor, department heads or principal, and Carlos they all have to sign off the payment. And
Sorry, one thing.
Yes,
On the form, is it supposed to be data or is it supposed to be date?
date.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, finding three. Finding three has been addressed in the procedure as well. We are making a fourth copy to keep all the facility invoices on a different file, so it's easy to access. And finding four, we've hired Carlos, and he's amazing, great. Finding five. So the auditor recommend a part-time district staff auditor or outside auditor. Mr. Taylor said during our annual audit with the town, and they do audit all the expenses, and we have to provide any invoices that they require. So it's kind of covered by that. Finding six, procedures. So we are currently working on our procedure policy, and I will continue to create similar procedures for the internal use. Finding seven are those two items we didn't have answer for at the time of the audit, but now we do. The works have been completed. And those are details of the work.
Very good, thank you. Does anybody have any questions on that? I know that we've talked about this on and off for a while, and I think it's good to see this list right now this way. Thank you for providing that. I personally feel comfortable to say that everything that we were asked to address has been addressed, obviously with the exception of that policy that we're very much in the middle of working on. So how does the rest of the committee feel? Do we feel like we're in a good spot with this now? We can cross this one off the official list.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. All right.
I mean, a lot of work went into this in the last year.
Absolutely. Yes, and it's good to see that you guys were able to chase down the last remaining pieces. So it's a good thing to wrap up.
Just a quick question, just so I can visualize where these doors, so the birch door, is that in the gym or the locker room itself? Do you know offhand?
Let me look at it
The
again.
invoice said locker room, and
Okay.
the problem is we just didn't know where, so they must have got together and were
Gotcha.
able to show them
Okay,
where. We just
okay.
couldn't figure out.
Okay,
specifically
perfect.
where.
Yeah, just because it high school gym locker room, I wasn't
Mhm.
sure. Okay, fantastic. It was just item 2 of number 7, but it sounds like it's likely in the locker room. I was just curious where that work was done.
Megan, do you remember?
So I recall the invoice saying locker room one, but the problem is when we got down there, there's many doors, and so we were unable without more information to know which one, because we didn't have the right parties with us, but it sounds like that's been resolved.
Yeah, and then number 3, I believe, is to the outside door that, right down at the locker room, down at the, near Shining Star there, that door.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brings us to the report of the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment.
Thank you, sir. In your packet, you just have basically the bullet points of things I'm going to talk about today. our MTSS system, our procedures anyways, we've been working as a district team for the last year. We still have a lot of work to do, honestly, and are still meeting monthly with our group. There's about somewhere between 30 and 40 members of our district team, because it represents teams from each of the different individual schools. And we've been really working hard to put all of our procedures down so that we have similar processes from one school to the next to the next. In some schools, we had more defined procedures than we did in other schools. And we're using sort of the ones that we have defined to build off of and bring all the way across through our district. So first, MTSS, it's a framework designed really to support individual students. It's important to know that it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It's really based on individual student needs. It utilizes data in decision-making, progress monitoring, and evidence-based strategies. And it's, I think, the key to a successful MTSS process is collaboration between teachers, support staff, and parents along the way. There's 3 different tiers of support. You have your tier 1. If you think of it as a triangle, most of it is happening in tier 1, which is the bottom of the triangle. That's the universal supports for all students. Examples being, differentiated instruction, scaffolds, accommodations, that sort of thing. Then there's tier 2, which are targeted interventions for students needing additional support. And then tier 3, which are, your intensive individualized interventions. Let's see, our team structure. So I talked about our district team. That sits at the top. But below the district team are the school teams, the school leadership teams. Those facilitate the MTSS process throughout the schools. And then there's the individual teams. So think about, you have your red team at Stacy. That would be an individualized team for the student, because they have 5 different teachers and they're talking about the individual student need. When we identify concerns, it starts with qualitative and quantitative data. I had the opportunity of actually sitting in an individual meeting about a student at Brookside before it actually got all the way up the chain. It was a teacher with a teaching assistant, a special ed teacher was in there, and they were talking about some of the interventions that they put in place for the student, and just making sure that they had it all documented. They had work samples. They talked about different communications that they had with parents and different communications that they had with other people on the team. So that was great. But that's where it starts. Then once that's all documented, we're talking with parents and we're collecting data. We are putting interventions in place in monitoring student progress. We've come up with a system where we have a 6-week MTSS process. So we're talking about students at the beginning of the 6 weeks, putting interventions in place, monitoring the progress throughout the 6 weeks, coming back to the table on that 6th week or 7th week. Do we need to keep going with these interventions working? If they are, we keep going and begin to pull them back potentially. If they're not working, what else do we need to do so that we can help this student meet with success? And then we go for another 6 weeks with those. That happens typically, if you've heard this, I think you may have heard this, during TCT or team collaboration time. It's time that our teachers have together during the day. It's not a prep period. It's a time where they come together and they talk about different student needs. And we try to solve problems just at that team level first. Then it gets kicked up if we're not able to solve it there. Let's see. I think it's important to note that throughout the process, we're ensuring that parents are involved, parents know what's going on, so that at the end of 6 weeks or 12 weeks, we're not hitting them with, hey, by the way, we're gonna do a special ed referral here because they've been going through this process for the last 12 weeks and haven't been making progress. So we're really trying to emphasize that. Then finally, just some challenges and solutions we have with the process. First, resource allocation, meaning reading intervention teachers. A lot of our reading intervention teachers, for example, are already fully scheduled out. So sometimes when we have students and we feel like, hey, this student would really benefit from, one-on-one with a reading intervention teacher, we have to figure out how we can make that happen in the schedule when the teacher's already fully scheduled. Staff training, making sure that all the staff know how our MTSS system and process works. We're really making an effort to make sure that students go through the process and it isn't just, we're going to refer to special ed, and then we have over-identification of special education students when we could have been putting some interventions in place along the way and making progress that way. Scheduling is it's really challenging, especially at the middle school and high school when there isn't dedicated blocks to pull kids out of, we don't want to pull kids out of their classes. We want to have a dedicated block, and we don't have that right now in our schedule. So that's been challenging to try to figure out, and then just managing the data. We have Open Architects, and we are working with Open Architects to make sure that the system that we're building on Open Architects has everything that we want and need to facilitate this process. And we are going to continue to meet just as our district team, and we are starting next month. Jen Norjani and I going to different school teams to just watch the process at each of the schools. I think, like I said before, collaboration and communication are key to student success, and that's really what we want in this process. So I don't know if anybody has questions.
Just a quick question. I know you had mentioned involving parents when individual students are identified. At what step in this process do parents usually get notified that a child's been referred for the process?
Honestly, that's one of the first things that we say when teachers refer to the school level team. One of the first questions is, are the parents aware? So they can't bring them to the process until the parents are aware. So right at the beginning.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And is that all embedded in the system, Greg? Like, is there a box that says parents notified?
Exactly, yep.
Okay,
Yep.
that's super helpful. What's the goal in terms of fully implemented? Like, I would imagine the training piece is a little bit of behemoth. Kind of what is your target in terms of, like, we'd like to see this up and running and sort of utilized?
Well, right now we are, I don't know if piloting is the right word,
Sure.
but trying to see if we have the right, cadence in terms of the 6 weeks in place. We are running teams right now. We are running students right now. To say it's fully implemented, I can't, because I think that our middle school and high school it's a challenge right now, and I think across the state to implement MTSS in middle school and high school, it's just hard to do because of the way that the schedule is. We are trying to figure out solutions to that. I would say hopefully by the end of this year, we'll have a plan to move forward and be fully implemented for next year.
With the younger grades being done this year?
Yeah,
we're already there.
We're already
Exactly,
there.
okay.
What we're not fully implemented with is Open Architects. So that's the other piece that we got to bring in.
So where does it live?
On paper right now.
Oh, sorry.
Which is the way it's been,
Got it.
and that's one of the reasons why we're trying to bring it in
Okay.
on Open Architects, so that
Got it.
when the student moves from one school to the next, we have a record and it doesn't get lost in
Gotcha.
paper.
And what's the timeline for that, or who owns that?
Hopefully by the end of the year.
Okay.
We're working with it now.
Yeah.
And we're going just back and forth with, all right, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this?
Got it. Okay, so
So-
it's just in iterations in terms of fine tuning or
Exactly.
whatnot. Okay, that's helpful. Thanks.
Yep.
Craig, going back to just on the identification side, I think last time when you presented, there was a couple committee members that actually had children transition from one school to the next, where it was found that they in a sense needed to be brought into this system.
Mm-hmm.
Have we looked at our schools and say, hey, where did we miss? Like, where did we go wrong? How do we do a better job at catching students?
I think that's really the goal of our district team, is just talking with all the schools. That's something that we hadn't done that before. I think last year was the first time we brought all the school teams together to say, what's your process? And I think through that process, we've been learning, I don't want to say that we've dropped kids from one school to the next. I think where we've dropped is the history of the interventions that we've actually put in place. So we know, for example, that a kid has been in reading intervention. What we don't know when a kid goes from one school to the next is what were the strategies that we were working on with this kid. So we have to just do a little bit of digging, I guess, and going back to the other teacher.
And does that, right now, like you said, it's a paper process. If
Mhm.
you're able to get things going in Open Architect, does that
Should
have the-
all be right there.
That has the ability to capture
Yep.
that information?
Yep, and I think what we like about it is, we talked about the 6 weeks. You can document everything right in the platform, so that we know, like, on session 1, this kid was working on this, and the kid was engaged, the kid made progress, so on and so forth. Session 2, the kid was absent. We'll have all that information in there.
Sorry if I missed it. On the Open Architect, like, what's the game plan to get to there, and how long do you think that's going to take?
Hopefully by the end of the year, but I as you can imagine, it's a sort of a massive undertaking to get everybody trained in it too.
End of the school year or end of the calendar year?
End of the school year.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was about to say,
not in 3 weeks.
that was hopeful.
You need to stay here all night.
And people are accessing open architecture, I think, just to get it like fully functioning for everything we want to
Sure,
do.
sure.
I want to be very clear on that. People are using it for a lot of purposes right now. And it has a ton of useful information.
Yeah. And, like, you all have, you have a couple of dashboards that you still have access to, like enrollment, for example. You can go on there and see just day to day how the enrollment shifts.
I don't know if Open Architect is the place for this, but I do think actually demonstrating is being optimistic that we're going to get a full district
Mhm.
rollout, everyone's going to be on board. We should start seeing those special education referrals coming down. And so making sure that we have a transparent way of looking at that and showing that data to others, I think is going to be really important.
Mhm.
And
I agree.
will impact all the things that Lucy was just talking about. Maybe that will help some of the, push we're feeling with more students getting referred, the needs of budget. If the system is successful, theoretically, we shouldn't have as many
Agreed.
students in that pipeline.
Do we have the ability to start kind of tracking that, where we are now and where
Yeah,
we'll be, in 3 to 4 years?
You do. We have the numbers of people in referral.
Mhm.
So I guess in theory, you're right, the numbers of referrals should go down year over year.
We've got historical data on that too.
Good.
That's kept by the state.
Anything further? All right. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. My favorite time, under the consent agenda. Anybody have any comments? You're smirking, don't smirk like that. All right, so I'll read off what we have, and then I'll look for the motion. The consent agenda tonight will include the following: the approval of 4 warrants in the amount of $871,178.12, the approval of minutes from the November 21st, 2024 regular session, and professional development in the amount of $5,743. That is a cumulative number. A motion to accept.
I motion to accept
Motion by
the
John.
consent agenda.
Yeah, I think I saw tears go down that
A little bit.
Just ask one quick question.
Sure.
Sorry.
Very quickly.
I just want to clarify, so looking at the minutes, and I know it's a little bit different because we started with executive session and then went into regular session, there will at a later time be minutes from the executive session, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, those will be brought forward later for approval
okay,
and release at some point.
thank you.
I'd add a second by Megan. All in favor? Thank you, guys. We win, finally. Subcommittee updates.
So the facilities subcommittee, we met, what was it, last Tuesday? And, yeah, so Carlos and his team felt like, they're keeping up on things. Obviously, just, it's a constant battle for Carlos to keep up on the infrastructure, but feel like definitely, he's doing a good job. Still trying to wrap up things at Brookside with the punch list a little bit, so they're still working on that, but we still have some money that we've withheld. No real big changes at Memorial. They did some work on the bridge, I think, had completed up there. Woodland, they're working on the pest control in that area. Stacy Middle School, they were the new boilers were up and running. They had just a couple little add-ons to do for the controls sequence there. And then the high school, the boilers were up and running. They're operating on one boiler. The other boiler, they were getting it ready just to, and that way he can have that as a backup or have them both going, so which is good. So again, they're staying up on top of things. The biggest push that myself and both John that were at the meeting is just requesting data from Carlos and just really being able to export out data so we can present to you guys, the full committee, during budget season. What is he doing day to day? Does he need more people? Is he well staffed? So really trying to push him for that, and then also just documenting on the facilities themselves. It's just it's a big push that John and I both really feel that Carlos and the administration team really need to get behind, because it's just Carlos is a wealth of knowledge, and it's all up in his head, and he can tell you, speak to it for 45 minutes, but it's not on paper and it's not documented anywhere. So we feel like there's just it's a dangerous game that we're playing, so we really need to ensure that he spends some time and concentrates on documentation for of all of our facilities and the infrastructure surrounding it. So, anything else?
No, you summed that up perfectly.
Anybody else meet? All right. Thank you, Chris. Future agenda items. Anyone have anything for me? No? The only thing that I'll add, potentially a future agenda item for facilities subcommittee to meet pretty much along the lines of what Chris just spoke of. Actually, I think that we should meet to discuss plans for budget season, primarily around, I know last budget season we talked about an administrative assistant to help with a lot of what you just mentioned. And I think that given that we don't have that documentation and data at hand now, and we're basically in budget season, I think we need to meet and decide if there's a case to be made for the committee. Kind of the old-fashioned way to sit down and decide if we need to support an addition of an administrative assistant for the facilities department. And that may require more discussion with Carlos and the group.
And that's kind of why we're pushing for this. We're looking to see what they're doing, for projects, what they're doing daily. We're looking for ticketing reports so we can try and assess if it's better bringing another person in-house, if some of these things are better off outsourced that they're trying to do in-house. We're looking to get a more clear picture, and that's why we probably pushed them a little harder than Chris just glossed or glanced over, but he covered it on the high level. So
yeah. Yeah, my only concern is we have one more meeting and then it's basically budget season. I don't know that we're going to get the data that is being sought after in time.
Well, we were told it's become a high priority.
Okay. then maybe we'll get it. All right. So that will wrap up future agenda items and bring us to adjournment. So we will proceed to end the open session of our meeting tonight. We do have executive session scheduled to discuss superintendent contract negotiations. We will not be returning to open session. I'll start a roll call vote with Brendan.
Yes.
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 I'm also a yes. Thank you very much and good night.